All right, so Herodotus, book number 1 is complete, and I wanted to make a video to recap what I remember. It's been maybe a week since I finished book 1, and I haven't really read anything since then. So yeah, this is going to be really hard for me because there's so much information in book number 1. So many names to remember and like lineages that there's just no way I'm going to remember all of that on the first read. But I think I have a general idea of some of the storylines from book number 1. So I'm going to do my best to try to recall what I read. Okay, so it starts off, book number 1 starts off explaining some backstory as to why the Greeks and the Persians have bad blood, basically. And I think it starts because of some girl gets like stolen. I think it's I'm just gonna butcher all of the information here. I think it's in Phoenicia or I think maybe in the Levant. This girl was stolen, who was the daughter. She was stolen maybe by the Phoenicians and brought to Egypt. Her name was spelled I-O. I don't know if it's pronounced the same way. But she was stolen and brought to Egypt by the Phoenicians, who I don't think are Greek or Persian. Yeah, right, they're in like the Levant. So yeah, that girl was brought to Egypt, and I'm trying to remember why that starts the bad blood. I don't know if she was the daughter of, I've been trying to do these videos without looking at any information, but this is just going to be awful for me if I don't. So, okay, she was an Argive princess. Wait. Hold on. Oh, wow. Okay, so I was kind of right. She was kidnapped by the Phoenicians from Argos and taken to Egypt. So yeah, so she was Greek, but what I don't understand is why the Persians care, because she's Greek and she was brought to Egypt. And Egypt wasn't ruled by Persia at that time. All right, we're gonna have to just be looking stuff up while I do this. This is what I hate about my memory. I just don't remember anything. It's so frustrating, but there's just so much information that a lot of it just disappears. Oh, okay, so all right, I'm just gonna give up on this. I don't know why the Persians cared about that kidnapping, because it was between Phoenicians, Egypt, and Greece. But I don't know if that initiated like a domino effect of other kidnappings that somehow affected the Persians. God, I'm already just hating trying to recap this. So that happened. Then we learn about the story of Croesus. But before that, we learn about the story of Croesus's like fifth generation grandfather. I can't remember his name either. Oh God, this is awful. This is just awful. I'm not gonna remember his name, but he was killed by Gyges, Gyges, who was originally his assistant or security guard. He was killed by him. What was his name? Candalis. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. Candalis. That was the king, ruler of Lydia, and he wanted to show off his wife to his security guard, and so he arranged for his security guard, he arranged for Gyges to sneak in and peek at the wife while she was undressing. She ended up seeing him and didn't make anything. She didn't cause a scene, but like the next day, the wife catches Gyges and goes up to him the next day and gives him an ultimatum saying that he can either kill himself, he can either unalive himself, or he can unalive his king. Was he a king? I guess he was, right? That's the word, yeah. Or he can unalive his king and then marry her and become the new ruler of Lydia. So that's what he ends up doing. So Candalis dies. There's some interesting artwork depicting that scene of him showing his wife to Gyges. So Gyges ends up being the first in a line of kings that ends with Croesus. And Croesus, Croesus, what is there to tell about Croesus? His story as a ruler kind of starts being interesting when Solon, I don't actually know who Solon was. Solon comes to visit from Athens. Yeah, Athens, I think. He was a statesman, lawmaker, and poet. He comes to visit for some reason, and Croesus is trying to gloat and show off all of his riches. Lydia was a very rich... What was Lydia? Was it a city, a state, a region? I don't know what the word is. A kingdom? What is... Is a kingdom its own thing, or is it... Oh, this is just awful. I hate this. I really hate this, but I have to do it. Kingdom is a type of country or state that is specifically ruled by a monarch, such as a king or queen. Okay. So it's not like Athens, right? Which is a city within Greece. Or city-state. Athens was a city-state. Okay. Croesus was the king of the Lydian kingdom. And Solon comes to visit. I know this is gonna bug me. Why does Solon come to visit Lydia? Part of his travels after retiring from public life. Now, he was invited by Croesus. I think Solon was also considered a philosopher. So Croesus was trying to gloat to him and impress him with all of his wealth. And he asks Solon who is the happiest man that he's ever seen. Basically trying to bait Solon into saying that it was himself, Croesus. He's just trying to toot his own horn. Solon realizes that's what he's actually asking and doesn't want to let him have that. But I also think he realizes he has some wisdom that he ends up sharing about what makes someone happy. So he says the happiest people that he has ever met were from Athens, and all of them had died. Basically, he says that happiness, you can't calculate someone's happiness until after they've died, because someone who's very wealthy, like Croesus, could end up losing all of his wealth before he dies. So That was Solon's. Those are Solon's words of wisdom, and it kind of foretells the story of Croesus. Some other interesting stuff about Croesus. Yeah, I think he had two sons. One was mute, and the other ends up dying in this interesting way. He has a dream. He has a dream basically foreshadowing that his son is going to die somehow. So he takes a lot of measures to prevent this from happening. It ends up happening anyway. I don't know if this is when he consults the oracle at Delphi for the first time, but does he? I don't know. I'm really struggling here. This is just horrible. Anyway, his son dies. And in the 2 years of mourning for his son, he decides that this growing Persian empire is growing too much, and also his brother-in-law, I'm not going to remember the name, yeah, his brother-in-law, who I think is also Cyrus the Great's grandfather, starts with an A. Astyages, king of the Medes. So there's this other kingdom called Media, which is farther east than Lydia. I think closer to the Arabian Sea. Or Media. The Caspian Sea, not the Arabian. Caspian Sea. Yeah, closer to there. So Cyrus the Second. This is the first time we kind of hear about him. Croesus learns that he's taken over Media and is expanding his own empire. So Croesus is kind of pissed because his brother-in-law lost his empire, or lost his kingdom, and also he's worried about Cyrus, just another kingdom expanding so rapidly. So he gets the idea that maybe he should attack Persia. And Persia, before this point, was a much smaller area. It was basically covering the top part of the Persian Gulf. and that's pretty much it. So they were expanding north and west. Yeah, so Croesus isn't sure if he should attack Persia, so he goes. I think this is when he goes to the oracle at Delphi and asks probably the Pythia, who we learned about in the Eumenides by Aeschylus. So he asks one of those people if he should do it, and they respond to him with kind of like a riddle, saying that if Croesus invades Persia, a great kingdom will fall, or something like that. He doesn't realize that it's talking about his own kingdom. Long story short, he ends up attacking Persia. I don't remember where that happened. Where did Croesus first attack Persia? But he attacks Persia. In Tyria? Okay, so he attacks at Tyria. He attacks there, and it was pretty even. But they weren't winning, and I think it was starting to get cold. So he retreated to Sardis, further south, in Ionia. I think it's in Ionia. Cyrus has the great idea to follow Croesus. Croesus doesn't think he's going to get followed. They're trying to wait until spring to start fighting the Persians again. Cyrus must have been aware of that, so he follows them south and then starts a siege. Siege? That's a weird word. Around Sardis, so that no food or water is getting in or out. And eventually, Croesus just has to surrender. And Cyrus now has Lydia under his own empire, and he kind of takes Croesus as like captive, but also as his like assistant almost. Like Croesus starts giving him advice. At one point he was put up on a pyre, but the rain came down and saved him and like extinguished the fires. I don't know if that's why he is willing to help Cyrus, because his life was saved or something. Anyway, that's kind of the story of Croesus, and that explains how the Persians first gained control of this area of Greece and Turkey, modern day Turkey. It starts in Turkey, and then eventually I believe the Persians make their way to Greece. But yeah, there are definitely Greek people in the Persian side of this geographical region, like Ionia. I think a lot of those people are originally Greek. Yeah. Then we learn about the story of Cyrus. So we were introduced to him first, and then we learn a little bit about his backstory, which is pretty interesting. So Cyrus was initially he was born as he's a mixed race between, I think they called him like a mutt or something in Herodotus. But his dad is Persian and then his mother is Median. So he's mixed. And yeah, there's an interesting story about his birth as well, because his mother was the daughter of Astyages, and Astyages had this nightmare that his daughter like urinated and it overflowed the entire kingdom and spread across all of Asia, which is what they called modern day Turkey at that time. I think Asia, anything west of Greece, I think, or east of Greece, I think was called Asia. And so Astyages took this as a sign that his daughter, who I believe is Croesus' sister, maybe, that her child will come to take over his own empire, Astyages' own empire or kingdom, which he doesn't want to happen. So he marries his daughter off to a kind of no-name, lower class ruler of Persia named Cambyses. He was the king of Anshan. I don't know if that's I don't think he was the king of Persia, but king of Anshan. So he was kind of important, but not enough for Astyages to believe that his son would be able to take over, which does end up happening because Cyrus II he sent off to be killed after he's born. I'm trying to remember why. Why is he sent off to be killed? Why would he marry his daughter off if he knows she's going to have a kid? I think he had a second dream. Why did... Oh. So I was just wrong. He marries his... Astyges marries his daughter off not because of any dream. He just thinks Cambyses is a low enough ruler that he won't pose a threat to take over his own Astyges' own kingdom. There's no dream that happened yet. The dream happens after Cyrus is born, and that's why he tries to have Cyrus killed. So, yeah, Astyges tells his assistant Harpagos, I think he's an assistant, to kill Cyrus, basically. Harpagos doesn't want to do this, so he sends his shepherd to do it by bringing him up to a mountaintop or a hill or something and just leave him there. But the shepherd ends up bringing Cyrus home, baby Cyrus, and the shepherd happens to have a wife who just had a stillborn. So they do a swap, and they put the stillborn out on the hill, and they keep Cyrus. And so when Harpagos sends his other henchmen to go confirm that the baby is dead, they see the stillborn, which they think is Cyrus. They confirm it. All of the royalty think Cyrus is dead, but only the shepherd and his wife actually know his true fate, and they bring him up and raise him. And it's not until Cyrus is a young boy that everything kind of falls apart, and it's revealed that he is actually who he is. He's the grandson of the king. And this is revealed in like a playground game where they're playing a game where they appoint someone to be king, and the king orders everyone else around, something like that. And Cyrus ends up being really good at that game. He's the one who gets appointed as the ruler. He ends up being too good at it and kind of bossing some people around who get pissed off and complain. Somehow this makes its way back to Astyges. I don't remember how exactly, but that's gonna piss me off. How does the news of Cyrus playing king in playground make its way back to Astyges? The news reached the king through a complaint made by the father of a boy whom Cyrus has beaten. Okay, so Cyrus beats up this other kid in this game. The other kid complains to his parent, who complains to the king? Goes straight to the king? This leads Cyrus to being summoned before Astyges, where his bold explanation and behavior revealed his royal nature to the king. And then, he sees Cyrus and realizes that through his mannerisms that he has the qualities of a king, and realizes that something's off. So then he gets the shepherd back in there, Cyrus's adopted father, and the shepherd ends up telling the truth. They kill the shepherd, and then he brings Harpagos in, and to punish Harpagos tells the whole story. To punish Harpagos, he kills Harpagos' son and cooks his son and feeds him on a plate for Harpagos to eat, and then tells him about it and asks him if he likes it or something like that. And Harpagos somehow keeps his cool, tells him whatever the king does is cool with me, but then starts secretly plotting his revenge. So Cyrus is sent off to Persia. And as he gets a little bit older, Harpago starts initiating contact with him again. To try to prepare him to become king and overthrow Astyages in an act of revenge. And that's what happens. He sends a secret message in like a rabbit to Persia, to Cyrus, telling him that he's, that he should revolt against Astyages. And Cyrus is older at that point, and he manages to what's the word? I don't know what the word is. He manages to round up a bunch of people, and I'm so tired right now. Oh, this is so bad. He ends up overthrowing Astyages, and he becomes the new ruler of Persia. This is when the whole stuff with Croesus happens afterwards. And after this, I am so confused because I was not reading as intently or as closely. Yeah, I'm just going to end it here. This is just not productive at all.